Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa
Salam.
barakatuh. Uh,
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, bro. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Managing. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Today we got Jabir on the podcast. Just talk about Jabir and I actually went to Umrah together, and like myself, he also did a lot of traveling before and after, and it was on the road for about 20 days.
Yeah,
So
yeah, long
just
time.
yeah. So we'll like to talk about that and just get some of your reflections and insights from all those days of traveling, especially to the holy lands of Mecca and Medina.
Sure.
And so yeah, without further ado, like to just dive right in. Just first of all, tell us like about your travels. Where did you go, and how long were you on the road for?
I was on the road for 20 days in total. Of course, we spent 11 of those days together. Was it 6 days in Makkah and
I
then
thought it was,
five in Medina? Or was it the other way around?
I think
It was
because
one
that
of the
travel
two.
that yeah, because that travel day, I think it might have been like 5 or 6 in Mecca though.
Yeah, so in total it was 11 days, Makkah, Medina. And then for me, my trip didn't end. So then I went to Qatar for 5 days. And then I went to Abu Dhabi for one day. I say one day, it was more like a extremely long layover. And actually, when I was in Abu Dhabi, funny enough, I could have come to Dubai to see you, but you were staying with your aunts, and plus it was quite late. I think it was at night time, so it wasn't the best idea because we had a flight to catch again um, to Istanbul in Turkey. So we did 2 days there. I think that's it, and then we went home. So in total, it was 20 days on the road.
Wow. Yeah. How did you find that? Like, was that your first time doing something like that, or have you done something like that
Yeah,
before?
no, first time in terms of not traveling, but doing a series of back-to-back travels. And funny enough, I backpacked the whole thing. So that was one of the best bits about it, you know.
That's right. So Jabir and I were actually roommates in Mecca and Medina, and when I arrived at the hotel, I seen his backpack, and I was just thinking, oh, like he left his luggage downstairs and ran off to Umrah because we actually traveled at separate times, so we arrived differently at different times. And I seen his backpack, and I'm just thinking, all right, I'm waiting for his luggage later. When I had found out that you had backpacked the whole thing, I was in shock. I was like, there's
Yeah,
no way. How did you do this? So that's actually a good starting point because I consider myself like a semi minimalist. I mean, I came over here to Jordan with just 2 pieces of luggage, and
mhm.
but you took it to a whole nother level. What's your mindset behind traveling just with a backpack? Because I know you said you did that also when you went from London to New York as well.
Yeah. I don't know. I think for me, like even with New York, that was my first time traveling in like a big way, as in traveling really, really far. And even then, I'd say I packed too much. So, for example, with New York, I still went with a backpack, but I mean, I took my iPad, my MacBook, and even my whole
Mm.
camera. I didn't use any of those three. So in my head, I was like, you actually don't need as much as you think to travel. Like, people might ask the question, like, what do you do about clothes and stuff? For me, um, like one of the things I invested in was like this compression bag. So then it's like this zip thing, and we like pack all of our stuff into it. For me, as long as I have enough, like underwear, t-shirts, socks, the clothes and stuff, for me, because we're going to, for example, this time we're in Makkah and Madinah and stuff, these are hot countries. So I didn't pack like heavy hoodies or things like that. The only hoodie I had was the one I wore in the airport just in
Mm.
case. So, I didn't pack any of the heavy stuff. So I got away with it. And then toiletries, some of them we didn't have, we just bought there. And we took like the mini travel ones you can buy. So yeah, very, very simple things, and it works for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. It sounds like it did. And I mean, the nice part is about being overseas. Like, some people don't think about this, but you have laundry readily available. So if you need to do it every few days, you can definitely do that and sort it out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And these countries, I mean, they're very efficient with their laundry systems. Like you give your laundry, it's done in like a few hours. You can just go collect it and whatnot. So yeah, for me, I had to do laundry quite a lot. I think people pack a lot because they don't want to do laundry or they're scared
Mm,
of it or something, but it's not that bad, you know.
absolutely, absolutely. Good stuff. So what would you say motivated you to start to do these travels? Like I know you traveled before to New York, and obviously these are the Holy Lands, but what made it motivated you to do these travels, and how do you feel like it's helped to shape your personal development?
Uh, I think there's two ways to go about it. I think the obvious route is obviously the religious route of like very much being encouraged to travel and see the lands that your creator's given you. But I think on a personal level as well, it's opening my mind up. I think for me, I'm from a part of London that is very tough to be in, you could say, and it closes your mind up quite quickly. I think I got the first taste of wanting to travel living out for university for 3 years. So I was away from London, and that was my kind of first taste of being away from an environment I've known the first 18 years of my life. So then I was like, okay, cool. There's a like you don't think about it, but of course, like it sounds obvious. There's a life outside of where you're from, and then from there, I've always thought to want to travel. And yeah, I traveled first to New York in September, and that was very impulsive as well. That was an invite, like a very last minute invite. And actually, what happened with that, I first booked to go to Morocco, to Marrakesh, just as a normal holiday. You just chill there. But then I got convinced by a different group of friends to go to New York to do some of the stuff we're doing within, exercise and fitness. And I did that, and it really actually opened my mind up. And from there, I always knew Umrah was the next step.
Mhm.
Because I spoke to one of my friends who's very, very well traveled. You look at his passport, there's not a single page that's not stamped. It's like he has to buy the advanced version with the extra pages now. He went to New York with me, and I was telling him like this has really inspired me to travel to XYZ, and he was like, "That's cool, but trust me, when you're at Umrah, it's different."
Mm.
And from there, it was always in my head. I just didn't know when it was going to happen. And obviously, when Sacred Ventures released Umrah, I was like, "Okay, cool, this is the step." But then I didn't want to just do Umrah, so I did the non-flight package. It was unorthodox because
Mm.
most people from the UK can just do the flight package and everything's done for them. But for me, I want to go to like all these little places. And yeah, I was really motivated to just see different places and do as much traveling as I can. I'm also at a point in my life where I have enough time now to travel. And also a lot of people tell me a bit older than me that they regret not traveling. So that's one of the mistakes I don't want to make. Uh, you know, going into my 30s, 40s, to not have traveled the lands at a time where I'm most physically capable of traveling. Because when you get older and get married, have kids, or whatever, it gets extremely hard. So yeah, that's kind of the main reasons why I wanted to travel.
Absolutely, yeah. I think in the West we have to have that mindset of work, enjoy a couple vacations here and there, but really wait to put all that stuff off until you're much older, much later in age. And I
Hmm.
mean, I think the purpose of these travels is to gain the wisdom and implement it into your life along the way, as opposed to waiting to the end. What's one piece of wisdom that you took away from some of the cities that you got to visit?
Ooh, one piece of wisdom. As in, does it have to be something that someone's told me or something I just learned along the way?
Absolutely. I think it could be both, either one, because if it weren't for you to travel to those lands, you might not have met those people that imparted those wisdom. And I think that's one of the benefits of traveling is meeting wise people from different cultures and different countries.
Yeah, I think for me, the main thing I learned on my sort of 20-day stint is people can really work together and thrive when they work together. Um,
Mm,
I think for me, being from London, it's a very, very fast-paced environment. And actually, when you go to the Middle East, for us, it gets quite slow. You know, for us, like for example, the service workers are slower and people just are much more relaxed and friendly. And it's so different from what I'm used to seeing in London. London is like 100 miles per hour. But actually, what I learned from that is people have different ways of working, but they all work. And the other thing is people really gel together from different environments. You just have to work a little bit harder to do that. But humans can actually figure out quite a lot when they do work together. You know, that's one of the
mm,
main things I realized. And actually, I realized that in Qatar the most
mm,
because Qatar is an interesting place because it's Arab lands, but it's very dominated by expats and Western people that have relocated for work and whatnot. And you kind of see them the most in terms of they've adapted to the life of like Arab life, but they still have Western tendencies.
mm.
And you learn a lot from them in terms of how they've adapted and how they've started to gel with new people or maybe learn the language. I think it's really cool. So yeah, for me, the main piece of wisdom I learned is people can really work together and gel together when they try it, you know?
Mm. Absolutely. Is there like a, because I mean that's, and I think that's one of the beauties of traveling is we got kind of get to see our Dean manifest before our eyes. And is there like a example, a story that you have that really solidified that mindset or that perspective shift?
Um, Let me think.
I know you mentioned like the workers move a lot at a different pace, maybe a slower pace, and it's something you have to kind of adapt to. But if you have any stories on that that you'd like to share.
Uh, you know what? I have a story in Qatar, and I can't take credit for it. It's actually my friend I traveled with, Imran. He has family in Qatar who if you're a well, if you're from Bangladesh, typically we've been spread all over the world in search of citizenship and work, and because of the way opportunities work in Bangladesh, you could be extremely educated and have no opportunities. So
Mm,
he has some family in Qatar. They don't live in the best conditions, um, but they came to Qatar purely for work, and all they do is work, and they have these sort of workers' camps. Um,
mm,
you maybe have 5 or 6 beds in a room. You'll have the fridge in the room, a single desk. Um, they're by no means the best conditions, but actually, what I learned from that is one of his cousins who also lives in that poor environment. He actually owns the whole building, and he
mm,
also has built a house back in Bangladesh. So what I learned from that is like people do have to sacrifice a lot and work
mm,
together a lot to get to where they are. Like for example, in the case of us Bengalis, we'll kind of pool our resources together. Like one of the things, well, not so much for us in London because we have a much more fortunate situation, but for the ones in the Arab lands, they have to sort of all their brothers come together, live in a little tiny room, and they all pool
mm.
their resources together to build a single home uh, back in their country in Bangladesh. So yeah, that's kind of where that mindset shift happened, just sitting in that room and being quite grateful that the situation Bangladeshis have in London
Mm,
um, is much better than what it is in some of these lands,
mm.
and they're working really hard to make their ends meet.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, here we are, just three of us in a room, and you know, three grown men in a room is already a lot. But yeah, no, that's definitely very insightful to see with your own eyes and see
Yeah,
the people working together
it
for
makes you
sure.
feel grateful, definitely,
Mm,
because the way I think about it is it could have been like that for us if our forefathers didn't come to London. You know,
Mm,
I think as a Bengali, we typically search for work in either the UK, or there's a lot of Bengalis in Canada now, even in America. And in the Arab lands, they're more at the bottom of the scale, working their way up. But in London and, America and Canada, they've kind of established themselves now. So
mm.
it does make me quite grateful, but also a little bit sad that is the reality for some of us brothers, that it's not the same for everyone, but
Mm.
grateful nonetheless.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, speaking of gratitude, especially at our age, it's a blessing to be able to travel in general and especially to the Holy Land. So let's dive into that a little bit. This was your first time making Umrah.
Mhm.
So what was it like arriving in Mecca, seeing the Kaaba for the first time, touching the Kaaba, making Umrah?
Alhamdulillah, it was surreal. It's hard to, even now, it's hard to truly grasp what we did, and seeing the Kaaba, touching it, kissing the black stone. It's very it takes so long for you to process it. Like, even I was speaking to Imran yesterday, the guy who was in the room with us, and even he was like, "Bro, I still haven't processed the fact that we touched the Kaaba, saw it,
Mm,
done Umrah and whatnot." Um, I think it almost came as a shock, because your whole life you grow up, you know that you're praying towards the Kaaba, and
mm,
maybe you're told a story or two, like for example, Ibrahim alayhi salam like constructed it and whatnot. Um, but you never truly will understand its presence and what it holds until you're there.
mm,
And for me, like when I first saw it, so like one of the things we did with our sheikh is, like, he told us to keep our heads down, like for our first umrah. So because the sentiment behind it is, he wants us to see the Kaaba in full when we see it, so not like just a glimpse of it, because the dua you make when you first see the Kaaba is accepted. That's the sort of thinking behind it. So he wanted us to see the Kaaba in full, and just seeing the Kaaba like for the first time, like tilting our head up, like it was amazing. It left me speechless, because like I said, you pray to it your whole life, and now you're actually seeing it, and it's a whole different reality when you're seeing it. And even touching it is has its own baraka within it. But I think for us, like, the biggest thing was obviously after Umrah was kissing the black stone. I think that was also quite amazing, because the miracle of the stone itself is a whole nother story that blows you away. And when you realize that this is a piece of Jannah on earth, and
mm,
you're getting the chance to interact with it, you could say, yeah, it's surreal. There's so many moments within Umrah that if I sat here, it would take so long to get through all of it. But those are the sort of main ones that, for me, yeah, it was amazing.
mm, mm. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. Um, and that's a good reminder for people that want to go to the Kaaba and have that maybe dua list ready
Yeah,
and prepare something because the Kaaba really can just take every your speech, your thoughts, your breath, and just you know
yeah, yeah,
leave you in
definitely.
that state of awe. So, what was Mecca like for you? What did you do in Mecca? What were some of the memorable moments in Mecca for you?
I think definitely the most memorable moment of Mecca is how how our schedule worked. Is a very non-typical schedule, as in our schedule was in a way that if a normal human not in Mecca was to follow that schedule, they would drop really quickly. Like for example, we were getting maybe 2, 3 hours of sleep a night. Um, and we just spent the whole day basically doing ibadah, So like obviously you wake up for tahajjud maybe around like 3 a.m., something like that. I forgot the times now, but it was something like that. And you basically sleep at like 10, 11 because you spend your time doing ibadah even after Isha, and then by the time you come back, you're still like your mind is still wide awake, thinking about what you've done the whole day. Um, so yeah, it was amazing because we like even in between prayers, we would still stay in the haram or like one of the things we were doing is like for example between Fajr and Dhuhr, that's quite a long time. So for some of us, we'd have a nap. But actually, Zahir was the one that put us on like there's this strat of like rolling up the mat and like you basically have you create like your own pillow when you roll up like the green mat. So that's quite cool. Like I could tell that Zahir's done this before. But yeah,
No,
it,
yeah,
it was
yeah,
yeah, it was amazing. Like Makkah's it's a place that gives you strength and
yeah. Mm.
you don't even realize it until you've left Makkah that wow, like I was actually basically awake for 21 hours a day, walking, doing Umrah, Tawaf, Ibadah, and like you kept strong the whole time. It's
Mm.
very, very hard to do that in just your normal daily life. Even to stay awake for 21 hours, let alone the amount of walking, amount of things we were doing throughout the day. Even in between like salahs, like even if we weren't doing ibadah, we was going to different places, interacting with locals, and obviously it takes energy out of you, but we managed. I think that's one of the blessings of being in the Holy Lands that Allah keeps you strong. So yeah, that
Absolutely.
Mecca was amazing.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know about you. I looked at my step counter and I was putting in at least 15,000, but closer to 20,000 steps every day. And
Yeah,
that's like the most steps I ever do. On my my daily life, the average was I think around 17,000 over the course of our time over there. So
yeah.
absolutely I can echo that sentiment. And yeah, yeah, 100%. And what place in Mecca was like hit closest to home, like whether it was like Jabal Noor, Jabal Thawr, like with the stories of the
Uh,
Prophet ﷺ and getting to actually be in those locations.
uh, I think I think they all have their own sentiments, but I think definitely Jabal Noor is by far like felt the greatest in terms of how we did it because we after Tahajjud left to climb Jabal Noor before Fajr. So we was there before the sunrise. So we were taking it in the
Mm,
dark. And when the adhan goes off and it's still dark, but you hear like five, six, seven different adhans like echoing
mm,
throughout the mountains, and then you see the sunrise. And like for us, we were in a group of about 20 people, so it was a blessing to even have a jama'ah on the mountain
mm,
with all of us brothers. So I think Jabal Nur was definitely the best. And in terms of sentiment, like learning things like Khadija radiallahu anh climbed the whole mountain, to give food to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And these were times when there was no railings and stairs. Like we had it pretty easy, railings and stairs and paths. She probably just scaled the whole mountain, you know, just to give food to the beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And
mm,
even like learning about him being in the cave and things like that. They I think Jabal Nur was definitely a highlight, but not to take away from the other mountains. I mean, Jabal Thawr, learning about that was amazing too. I think they all hold their place, but for me, the way we did Jabal Nur uh, was amazing because we saw the whole skyline basically
mm.
at nighttime and seeing the sunrise. And of course, we had the talk from Sheikh as well after Fajr. I think that also was amazing because he sort of reminded us to be grateful of being right here
Mm.
on the mountain, taking it in. So definitely, yeah,
100%.
Jabal Nur is up there.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, nice. And would you recommend that that's a must do when people are in Mecca, like Jabal Noor?
Yeah, yeah, d definitely. Even like I think yeah, it's mandatory. You have to if you're physically able. But I mean, to be honest, I saw aunties, you know, that were pretty uh, not old, but getting by with physical difficulty, still climbing the mountain, even if it takes them 1, 2, 3 hours. They try their best to be there. And for us, 20, 30 minutes, a physically capable man can do that. But if you're able to, definitely you have to go to Jabal Noor. In terms of significance, like the other thing for me being on Jabal Noor is like we read the Quran so often and every day, really, because even if you don't pick up the Quran, you're reciting it in your prayers. And being on a mountain where it's revealed, where it was revealed, is surreal. You can't truly grasp it because it was a time long before you, but really you're standing in the exact same place it was revealed. And that's a blessing in itself. So definitely, if you can, I'd encourage going to Jabal Noor and climbing Jabal Noor, especially because then you can, go to the cave and they have like small prayer spaces that you can pray on top of Jabal Noor. So yeah, it's
Mm,
amazing. I definitely recommend it.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we were on Jabal Noor, Sheikh had somebody had asked Sheikh about the difference between Mecca and Medina and just which one he prefers. And so
Mm.
just transitioning to Medina because he left us with a little bit of a unknown and find it out for yourself. But how
Hmm.
was it like arriving in Medina al Munawwara and being in the Blessed City and, you know, experiencing it for the first time. I think when we first arrived, the first thing we did was go give our greetings to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi
Hmm.
Wasallam. And let's talk about Medina a little bit.
Medina is firstly, it's exactly how the Sheikh described it. Like there's uh to put into context, he was telling us the whole time we're in Mecca, like trust me, when you go to Medina, you can't even compare it to Mecca. Not in terms of significance, but uh more so the vibes, the people, the peace. And for me, who's never gone to either Mecca or Medina, I was like, okay, for me, I thought Mecca was amazing. So I was like, okay,
Mm,
Medina must be on a whole different level. And when we went there, it was basically exactly how he said, but also in an undescribable way. The peace there is amazing. Um, Everyone is super friendly there. The people are extremely peaceful. They greet you. I think one of the things in Mecca is it is actually quite fast paced, and because it's so purpose built, I think people are quite fast and always in a rush, and it's nothing like Medina. In Medina, no one's in a rush.
mm,
Everyone is like they're going to their destination, but there's no rush. They're in peace, and being in
mm,
Masjid al-Nabawi is also amazing. You can kind of just sit there and you feel the barakah of being in the land. Um, going to, for example, also Qiblatain and learning about the stories of how the Qibla shifted from Jerusalem to the Kaa'ba,
mm,
and even going to Masjid al-Quba. Like these three, they were amazing. I think Medina, it's hard to describe the peace. And for anyone that's not gone to Medina, uh, even us speaking about the peace, you'll never truly feel it until you go there.
mm,
So if you have the means to go to Medina, definitely you have to go to Medina. Like it's a must if you go to
mm,
Umrah.
mm, absolutely. Absolutely. I guess actually the last thing that you, like most of us did before we left Mecca, and I want to get your advice on this, is kissing the black stone because a lot of people want to be able to kiss the black stone.
Yeah.
and it's kind of that last thing on people's mind before they leave for Medina. What was it like for you getting to kiss the Black Stone, and how did you accomplish that?
I think for us it was well, for me it was slightly different because originally what we were meant to do is do it on a Monday after the Fajr Salah. Um, so we were meant to be fasting and do it. For me, I was kind of after Isha the night before on Sunday. I was like, hmm, maybe I should just go now, like at nighttime. And this was just an idea I had by myself. I didn't think anyone would want to do it with me, and I didn't want to take away from Sheikh's group. But actually, in the end, I had I think five other brothers come with me, so we actually did it uh, after Isha. I want to say around 1 a.m. We thought this would be a good time to do it, but one thing I learned in Mecca, there's no good time to do it. Like it's always busy in Mecca, um, and that's a blessing in itself. But I mean, so for us, it was really chaotic. The main intention I made when I went in with the intention of kissing the black stone is I don't want to violate anyone else's space or hurt anyone or barge anyone in order to do it. Um, and typically people get quite, I don't want to say violent, but they get quite barbaric in order to kiss this stone. And for me, I think it defeats the purpose if you have to wrong other people to do um, something which has such a blessing in it. So I always made that intention, and that's what I told all of us brothers to do to make intention to not have to violate anyone in order to do so. So six of us went in. Um, the experience, it was very dangerous. I'll say that. Very, very dangerous. For some of us, we can really say that we nearly felt like it was the end, trying to kiss the black stone.
Mm.
Um, but in the moment, you can't give up because you're already sort of being crushed and halfway in. And if your mind gives up, you're finished. So you have to just finish it at that point and get to the stone. So some of us touched the black stone, others kissed the black stone. So for me, I kissed black stone. Um, and it's such a blessing in itself because, as we know, all your sins are forgiven when you kiss the black stone. And I think the adrenaline dump after that as well, because of how intense it was yeah, it made me quite emotional. I don't know if it was the stone or the adrenaline or a mix of both, but I was quite emotional after that, doing that mission. And I went. Uh, Actually, what happened is we lost one of the brothers, Sufyan. We lost him for like an hour. So we were
Oh
like,
wow.
yeah, so we were quite scared, like, what happened to him? Because, things do happen, in these types of
Mm.
situations. But we eventually all met up. For me, I lost my slippers. Others lost their holy harams, like top parts and whatnot. But in the end, I think we were all extremely grateful that we
Mm.
managed to pull it off. And, by the time we went back to the hotel, Chef's group was coming out. And, they were seeing us all defeated and scratched up and yeah, I think maybe it demoralized them a bit, but again, they were also able to accomplish it. Um, yeah, it was truly a blessing. It's hard to wrap your mind around that as well, because
Mm.
it's a piece of Jannah. Um,
Mm.
a person like a normal person like us to be able to have a blessing to touch something like that. I think the main thing is even being invited to that place. Like that's what people need to remember. I think people make plans to go to Umrah all the time, but at the end of the day, if you're not invited to be there, you can't. You won't get there. You know.
Mm.
So yeah, it was amazing just to be invited and be able to do all of that. I do think it's it's not recommended for people who are maybe of age or not the best physical ability because it does get rough.
Mm.
But if your intention is good and you make sincere dua, of course you will pull it off.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I like to describe it as a jujitsu match. And so I think the brothers seeing you after that were probably like, why would I want to do that? But of course, that spiritual aspect is there, and the hope for reward, and
Hmm.
the drawing closer to these you know sacred relics.
Yeah.
And speaking of a piece of Jannah, so you got to kiss the black stone, and then of course traveled over to Medina. Were you able to pray in that piece of Jannah,
Hmm.
which is in Medina? And what was that like? How was it, trying to register for that, and your experience with praying in the Rawda?
Yeah, you know what, the registration itself was quite a task. The what would happen is we would try book it on the app, and then they would just get taken really quickly. Um, I think we were a few days into Medina, and most of the brothers had gotten a slot already, but there was a group of maybe like five, six of us who just weren't able to for a while. So eventually, not panic, but just like uh, maybe sort of doubt started to creep into our head whether we'd be able to go to this place. But alhamdulillah, eventually, after a few days of being in Medina, we were able to find a slot. I think this was right, I want to say before Fajr.
Hmm.
So it was a good time for us because we were able to pray tahajjud um, at the Rawda. Just being there is subhanAllah, like it's again extremely peaceful. I know the word peace comes up a lot, but that's the only way to describe all of Medina. But being in the Rawda was another level of peace. Just being around people who are so uh, devoted in their prayers and they have a mission in their head to pray for a certain thing or people or things. It's really nice. For me,
Hmm.
I had a quad bike accident a few days before, so I was actually on a chair. But I think that helped me because the guards kind of actually prioritized me a bit to like sit in a good place with my chair.
Hmm.
And yeah, I prayed my tahajjud there, got out, and yeah, it was really nice. Then we all just went back to sort of the main part to pray Fajr. And yeah, I think yeah, it's hard to describe, man. Just very peaceful, and obviously it's a blessing for us to be able to do tahajjud there because
Hmm.
uh, the prayer of tahajjud is like an arrow that never misses, and for you to be in the peace of Jannah doing that sort of prayer, you know, obviously,
Hmm.
inshallah, Allah accepts our du'as.
I mean,
Amazing, amazing again.
yeah, beautiful. I like to think about being in Medina is just like you're in constant sujood, and the prostrations in Medina are a whole nother level. And I'm hearing this theme of all these actions which we take, but at the end we know it's all from Allah, and there's just this outpour of gratitude which continues to come up while you're
Hmm.
in these holy lands. And yeah, it's beautiful to hear your reflections. It takes me back.
Yeah, subhanAllah, it's amazing.
And
I think I got so spoiled being there
hmm,
because I had travels after. And I saw some of the best mosques in the world after that. So, for
hmm,
example, went to Abu Dhabi, so Sheikh Zayed Mosque. In Qatar, like Hamad bin Jassim Mosque, uh, Qatar Grand Mosque, and they're all nice, but they're not like Medina.
hmm,
Um, like for example, Sheikh Zayed Mosque is a very beautiful mosque. Um, is made from the same material as the Taj Mahal, and
hmm,
from a construction perspective, it's probably one of the best in the world. But you can't replicate the vibe of Medina, and that's the one recurring theme I realized throughout the
hmm.
rest of my travels before I got back into the UK. Same with Turkey. Turkey has amazing mosques. We went to Hagia Sophia, Blue Mosque, Grand Kamlika. You just can't. Whatever you do, the construction can be 100 times better. You still can't
Hmm.
replicate Medina. It's impossible.
Dang, that's beautiful. So go to Medina. Go to
Yeah,
Medina.
go to Medina, and you know what? Like, if you're from the UK, it's actually not that expensive to. go to
Mm,
Medina. I think not to hate on tour companies or whatnot, because I think tour companies are doing an amazing job. But actually, if you're on a budget, one of the things I did was I didn't fly with the tour company. I did all my stuff with the tour company. I flew myself. So actually, I believe it cost me £87 to go from London to Jeddah, because we went
mm,
to Mecca first. I'm sure London to Medina is similar. Um, and look, realistically, if you really, really wanted to, you can do a very basic Umrah if you book everything yourself for like less than £400. Honestly,
mm.
I know you see packages online for like 1,500, 2,000, whatever, but if you don't have the means, but you have the means to book everything yourself, it's very possible to go Mecca and Medina on a budget. And
Absolutely.
I'm proof of that because I flew in a backpack on all the budget flights all across the world.
Yeah, there you go. You don't need any check bags or anything like that. But yeah,
Nah,
100%. I mean, yeah, I mean, us in the West, we're definitely spoiled, but it's not can't really make the excuse for Umrah for a cost.
hmm
That cost is a factor. So no, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. And a lot of times people don't like to go anywhere after Mecca and Medina, but it still seems like even though you traveled somewhere else, you were to, have that lens of gratitude. I'm
hmm
sure you got to catch up a lot on your sleep.
Yeah,
After
yeah,
leaving Medina, it's just like I need sleep again, and you don't experience that while you're in Medina or Mecca.
of
But
course. Yeah.
um, so how did how did this trip wrap up for you and just all the reflections and still sounds like they're still coming out and still being unpacked over time.
Yeah, I think
And just the
because the
final thing is what advice would you give to someone your age or another Muslim
mhm,
who, is thinking about going on Umrah or, doesn't really think that it's important for them at this age. You've had that travel experience, seeing other people, meeting them,
yeah.
exploring their ways, and now coming back to the UK.
Um, so the first point is I think the travels after kind of my mind was still always in Medina, Mecca and Medina. I think wherever you go in the world, your your mind and your heart stays in those places. Um, and that really reinforces the effect that it has, especially on a Muslim, to go to these lands. And for people that are thinking of going to Umrah, people that are young thinking of going to Umrah or think they don't have the means, the first thing to remember, and this is what worked for me, is firstly, Allah is the provider of your provisions. Just because you think you don't have the means does not mean that Allah does not will for you to go to Umrah. And actually, I had two friends within our tour group who financially didn't actually have the means to be
Mm,
there. Um, but they made so much dua and had such a sincere intention that uh, they were able to sort something out with the tour company and still be able to go. Um, so that's, I think, the main thing to remember when you're young and you want to go to a place like this is pray your tahajjud and make dua to Allah, sincere dua, and remember that He provides for you. I think one of the things in the West is we forget that it's not our bosses or our employers or whoever's putting money in our pocket. They're not our providers. In reality, it's only Allah. And if you are young and think you don't have the means, uh, your means is dua.
mm,
And that's what worked for me. And also worked for people that, I'm in a fortunate position. I can pay to go to things like this. But I had brothers that didn't have those means and they were still able to go. So remember that Umrah is also an invite. It's an invite from Allah. And that invite from Allah will happen if you are sincere. And that invite from Allah cannot be stopped by what's in your bank account. Um, you know, there will always be a way. So be sincere in your du'as, That's the only thing I can say and make um, the intention to go there. I think for me, I always dilly-dallied with Umrah because I saw people on social media go to and whatnot. But it's only when I actually started praying into Tahajjud and saying to Allah that I really want to go to this place that He found a way for me to go to it. Because you can have all the money in the world and still not go to Umrah. And that's the flip side of it. You know, there's young people who have the means to pay for everything and go to wherever they like, and they still haven't been Umrah. And that's
Mm,
the harsh reality of it. It's not uh, a money thing. It's
mm.
purely a provision. It's an invite and it's a blessing. So make your du'as and it will happen.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think that's a beautiful way to end because, like you said, dua is the ultimate sustenance. And I know you also made a video on your hike of Jabal Noor, so I'm gonna link that down in the description for everybody to
Inshallah.
watch. And just shout out your social media handles for us so people can follow your journey. Jabir is actually a fitness influencer, so he does a lot in the calisthenics sphere, and
Yeah.
especially for Muslims who want to get fit. I know he's going to be taking on some clients as well soon. So make
Yeah.
sure you guys follow along with that.
Yeah, inshallah. So obviously it's Jay's still working on everything. I'm sure you'll put it there. And yeah, my main thing is just helping Muslims get into shape again for the sake of Allah. Um, Umrah, Hajj especially is very physically demanding. So that's one of the things that I think as a Muslim man we should be physically fit and able. So that's what I focus on, along with a bunch of other things. But Alhamdulillah, yeah, I also do post and will post more of our Makkah and Medina stuff. Just been a really hectic week, so I need to edit more of our footage. But yeah, the Jabal Noor climb is up, so inshallah, go take a look at that as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. Appreciate you coming on, bro. And may Allah
Thanks
bless
so
you and
much.
increase you. Assalamu alaikum
Assalamualaikum.
wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.